yourselves. That you don't need these people.
That is funny. By the way, you can write a laundry list of how out of character, how assassinated Anthony Hopkins' robot is in this movie. Like he
just
be a good
hangs out,
but he doesn't do anything except in one moment of one scene. Like that's it.
Yep.
It's so funny.
We just keep seeing him standing off in the mountains, just watching them do all this hard work.
Yeah, but he also like free.
At the end of the film, the robot learns that Cora is the one that he's there when Titus explains that Cora is the one who attempted to kill the princess, and the robot is entirely like he was pre-programmed to want to protect the princess, but he never could because he wasn't there to do so. And he's just learned that Cora tried to kill the princess, but doesn't care.
No. This is what I don't even think Zach thought.
It's cool.
Like, yeah. I shot her. I killed her as far as I was concerned. And the robot's like,
I still don't know why they just fucking reprogrammed the robots to not have that weird setting anymore, where they just randomly start fighting.
Considering how they're immensely valuable, I think it was Garrett on FNT that said, could you at least get their armor and put it on people? It's fucking amazing.
Oh, yeah, in part 2, the robot is essentially bulletproof, whereas in part 1, they pretty much show that that isn't the case, because one of the guys shoots it and it falls over like immediately.
Yep.
No.
He was training in a cave.
That was a special gun.
It was a special anti-robot gun.
He drenched himself in elk blood, and that's made him obvious.
Yes.
God damn it, I can actually see that happening in the extended version.
That is where we get a slow motion shot of him grabbing the guts and ripping them out in slow motion, and then smearing them on his face. And then we're like, well, you see, this is meant to be an allegory for, I don't know, what would it be for?
Elk. He has horns. He's now one with the planet.
Nature is cruel, but the cruelness can mean the preservation of life or something. There you go. Yeah, we got it.
Beautiful, really. Yes, they're coming back from completing their grain adventure. Finally, it does feel like a relief when you know that that's coming close together.
Over the second phone call where the guy finally says like, "I haven't heard from Bob," and then he's busy they've been working.
You wanted to do the Toy Story meme where he's like, Bob, and then he holds up like an arm. He's like, hey, I'm Bob. How are you doing?
That would be pretty amusing. It would make this film twice as good as it is right now. Like it would double its quality if they just had that.
I mean, they could have fixed that problem in film 1 though. Like if they wanted to, because they could have established. It would still be really lucky if this happened, but at least it would kind of line up. If they established that Private Aris, the guy that he's speaking to, was the comms guy, then it would make sense for them to be communicating with him. And it would be really lucky that, okay, well, it's lucky that the comms guy is the only one of them that isn't a rapist. But at the very least, it would make sense.
It's so convenient he's not a rapist.
Yeah, he's conveniently not a rapist. If he was, then the film doesn't happen.
But it's because of this conversation that they're like, yeah, he's defected. It's like, what do you mean? You said in the first scene of this movie that Cora was on Velt. So why the fuck do you keep having these phone calls?
Right.
You already know that I mean, I guess all that you learn is this one soldier has defected, but how beneficial is that to you, really? I mean, you would have to assume that something must have gone wrong there if you believe that she's there and are heading there. Unless, like, we're meant to conclude that up until this point they actually thought that the garrison was still assembled and that they were still chill. Even though, why would he think that? She assembled, like, her, 7th samurai to go back. At this point, it would be a foregone conclusion that all of the other guys are dead and they've got their weapons.
They should absolutely know that they have their weapons, but the only way that they can think that Cora hasn't killed them all, basically, is if they believe that Cora snuck out of the village to go and gather her samurai and left the rapists to do their thing. Why would they think that Cora would do that?
These are difficult questions to answer, okay?
I know, they're questions I don't want to answer, but Zach's making me ask them.
The impression I got from this scene was that moment where you're talking about something for a while because you haven't figured out an obvious thing, and then a friend goes like, oh yeah, you're saying all that because of this, and then you're like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I knew all of that. time. Like the Noble is like it's clear they've they've all been wiped out or whatever. The guy who's been on the phone this whole time just sort of agree with him like obviously. I noticed that myself. I definitely did. But the implication then of course is like, wait, did you actually fuck this up? Like, and how? Whatever keeps the story going. Because of course, I think even Zach was like, the audience is gonna find it weird that they've only ever spoken to this guy, especially when he's such a low rank. It's so weird that they've only spoken to this guy. If only had that thought about other things in the film, but oh well.
But also they should have had Cassius realize that, like, oh shit, if the platoon is not little platoon, if the rapist platoon, if they're all dead, then if
Little
they're all
Platoon's
dead,
alter ego.
oh no. Yeah, if Cassius realizes that those guys are all dead, then that means that he should be like, shit, I've warned them that we're going to be here in 5 days' time, which means that we should expect some kind of resistance. But that is never mentioned. He doesn't acknowledge that he's obviously told them that they're coming when it really should have been a surprise.
Also, did they call back home when they weren't sure that Noble is actually going to survive? They're like, yo, she almost stabbed him. She's probably back on the moon. Like, shouldn't Motherworld know anyway that she's here and send more people just in case?
Well, again, he said, that's a good point. Why wouldn't they send even more ships to go get her if this is the #1 biggest fugitive?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, the idea that the grain matters at all is pretty insane.
It's insane.
Stupid.
It's absolutely insane.
Presumably they would be utterly indifferent to getting the grain if it means that they can capture her, which is funny because eventually they decide that that's the case, but not after having already lost hundreds of soldiers for the fucking grain.
Well, that's arguably the reason, right? He says, well, we got less mouths to feed now with grain.
That's basically why I assumed that they needed the grain because they didn't have enough food to get back to the Motherworld. Like, that makes sense. It's really dumb, but like that's the only way that I could make that make sense.
Yeah, shame they contradicted it right at the end of the movie. But I was thinking like rewriting it on the fly. What happens if Cassius mails Space Twin Alpha and says, hey, Cora's on the moon, go capture her, and then they use her as the kind of ruse to try and lure the Motherworld into this trap, and then it's a kind of a game of double bluffs as to whether or not they know that they've been betrayed, but they think that okay, Cora is the thing that they're after now, so we're gonna use Cora to lure them into this trap, and then the grain is completely gone. We don't need. Then again, we lose such wonderful lines as Titus saying the grain is the most powerful weapon you have. So maybe the film would be worse for this, but I still think it would make more sense if they'd used Cora as bait.
It's funny, I just can't entertain the idea that they actually need that grain, because they're like, what, miles away from a town? It's like, can you not get any supplies from there? That are probably more so than this settlement that hasn't even processed the grain yet?
The first film established that no, they can't, which means that if you buy that, then I think that the stretch to say that there is not enough food on the King's Gaze for them to get back to the Motherworld, I don't think that's too much of a stretch, but I completely understand that what I'm saying is monumentally stupid. Like, I totally get it.
What, the King's Gaze relies on this tiny settlement on some random moon to feed them? Yeah.
Yes, because that is one of the prerequisites for the plot of these films happening. So if you buy that, then I don't really consider it to be another step to suggest that they literally don't have the food to sustain themselves.
Just another thought as well. Maybe they can't go to anywhere else to get more food because they don't have enough coal to get there.
Oh no!
But it's a space vagina.
Yeah, well, they got to go to the other moon of Velt where the settlement of coal miners are.
Yes.
Oh, those are the ones with the coal guns, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's where the bullet giver is, the one that shot the other important person. It's this whole thing.
Also, I like how they just assume they still even need the grain because it's been, I don't know, a week, 2, maybe 3. Like, why would they assume they still need the grain at this point?
Why do you think Zach decided to make it grey? Because
That is a good question.
he could have made it. Well, when I say grey, I mean food, like period. Because
Yeah.
he knows that the ship runs on coal, which means that it could have been like a farm of, it could have been a bunch of coal miners, and the plot remains the same. It could have run on oil, and it's a bunch of people farming quote unquote oil, and the plot remains the same. And you don't have to ask the question.
Make it,
Yeah.
unobtainium or whatever.
Yes.
It's a really important thing that could actually start to make sense. Like it's like, oh wait, oh okay, a material that can only be okay.
Yeah, like something to power their fusion drive or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's why they specifically came to Velt, because they're like, this is what we broke our engine in a fight with the rebels or whatever, and this is the only planet in range for us to get fusion drive
Oh, look at
unobtainium.
that. In seconds already makes way more sense than what he wrote.
Yeah.
You could say there's a
But
grain
then-
of potential there.
Haha. But then we wouldn't be able to have slow-mo grain montage.
No.
Or you can do slow-mo coal mining or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, mining.
Slows, yeah.
Zach, you can get muscly, sweaty men, you know, mining some coal. Get in there, buddy.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up. It's pretty hard to. I appreciate you guys trying to make sense of this fever dream, but Jesus, I'm watching this, and I just call back to what Mahler said. Leave. You have giant Korra's ship crashed in the mountains that they just left there. I guess they didn't need the tech from it. And there's this giant mountain range you can hide in. It'll give you the high ground. You can just hide there. There's probably caves.
Well,
They
can dig
obviously
holes,
have.
Gary. They can dig super fast, so we'll just dig a bunch of
Oh,
holes.
yes, really fast. And they have game, right? They not grain. They have game. They have this big chunk of meat that Titus sings a song next to. So
Well, they
you
could
got
just,
food.
You know, contact the rebels and be like, get us out of here, please. We're all about to die.
It could. It would show up late.
They would
So.
Oh, that was so funny. I can't believe they did that.
When you want bedtime to be a good time,
Good night, sweetheart.
it matters where you stay. Stay and save up to 20% off. Hilton for the stay.
Mahler's so good about fucking commercials.
We all love what's
He
in the
usually
box,
makes it so
but not nearly
there's
as
barely
much as
any.
That was the funniest part. That was the funniest part of this. I gotta ask you guys, like, did you laugh more in the first one or the second one?
Oh, second.
Second, for sure.
Probably the second. I don't remember a lot more the first one.
I think so.
I did have a bit of like a, you know, losing my mind laughing in terms of just like no one should be writing a script so childish. Like this is so nuts. Because we're almost at the scene, the famous character scene we're getting there. I was gonna say, is the next one now the where they've sewn.
Town hall village.
Yeah.
They've got like a bunch of towels that they're giving them. Like, here's some towels and they have some symbols on
They
it.
have meeting, and it's just like, have we got time for this?
Well, it's funny because she gives like this big rehearsed speech, which is really like, it's so distracting how like it's like this clunky long soliloquy. And it's like it's not like a real person is talking. It's like this is an actress reading the lines off of the script.
I also
Like,
just don't
these
believe
lines
How about
it.
cue cards?
Like this
Yeah.
seems like a scene where you like 5 movies in or like 5 episodes or whatever, and they had like all these adventures together and know each other very well, and this village they know, but there's like 4 people they've seen for the first time in these last 5
Yes.
days, and they're
Yeah,
like, oh,
except,
you're the
yeah,
powerful wolf man, and you're the
Well, we have to mention
Sonic
that.
or whatever. I don't know.
That's my takeaway. Is like, she already knows more about these characters than we do.
We do. Yes.
Yes.
There's so much over familiarity.
Fire
This
of
was-
resistance that burns in the heart, and it's like, fuck off, I don't understand how you know this.
Yeah.
It was this scene where I just kind of held my head in my hands and just cried a little bit, because I was just like, it made clear to me what I think is possibly the main problem with the Rebel Moon movies, is that the character development is only ever implied. So
Right.
this scene basically implies that we, the audience, have learned about the characters, and that the villagers have also learned about them since their arrival during the grain harvesting montage. But instead of actually giving us any kind of meaningful, or no, I'm not even going to say meaningful. Instead of giving us any character development period or exploration of the characters themselves during those scenes, we just get slow motion montages of harvesting grain, and then we come to this
and then
scene.
the next scene, they declare
Yeah.
their growth. They
Yeah,
declare that they've changed.
Yeah, exactly. They're telling us that this has happened, and basically it's a payoff without a setup. You skip to the end of the character relationships, basically.
Yeah, you're right. It is really funny that you just have the farm girl like, all right, let me give you some towels that have images on them that are just open declarations of like what you are, essentially in the views of the villagers and Snyder, obviously. Because Titus gets one with some mountains on it, and Tarek, the guy who jumped on the griffin thing in the first movie, he gets one with an elk. Milius, who's like the cringe, the rebel girl who screamed and had a funny face when she did it, like she
The Hamburglar.
on it. And then Nemesis gets one with lightning on it, Gunner gets one with a heart on it, and Cora gets one with a fucking wolf on it, because like, man, Snyder, your imagination running wild. Look, she's a wolf.
So there's
How come like terrible screenwriters can't think of any other symbolic animal other than a wolf or a lion? Why is it never anything but a wolf or a lion?
Give it a slug towel. Do it.
You are slow and boring, like a slug.
That would be pretty funny. That would be super funny if there's like, you are a frog, you sit in the water and you munch on bugs. That's who you are. Here you go.
They could have actually pulled a joke out of it. It could have been a rare moment of levity, like intentional levity. Because they could have said, like, Tarak, you have an untamable spirit and undeniable nobility, like that of the forest slug. And then he's just like, wait, what the fuck, I'm a slug? And then one of them has to explain to him, no, we revere the slugs because they're really, like, tough and they can survive in all climates. Or something like that, some kind of, like, cultural misunderstanding that leads to a moment of levity. Could have done that, but no, it's, Tarak, you're like an elk, because you're strong and shit.
It's just, why can't, I don't know, I'm still just stuck on this, like, see, she's like a wolf. Why is it that, like, the only animals that will ever have any, like, symbolism in terrible movies is either going to be a wolf or a lion or an eagle? Yeah. It's never any other animal. I like, when do you ever even see something like as simple as, oh, you're like a peregrine falcon or something? It's always wolf, lion, or eagle.
Well, also, this is science fiction. There are science fiction creatures in I can't remember what they're called, but they're like space horses. They could have said, like, you're a blumble or something, and they're like,
the fierce org, you know.
Yeah, and then they have to again explain what it is because they're unfamiliar with it.
I like that they gave up with the sci-fi animals thing, because they begin with like by calling the space horses something else, and then they thought, well, fuck it, they are actually just elk. And you are like the chicken. You fly sometimes and you eat grain, and
You smell delicious.
And occasionally you go, and it's really amusing.
Out of cow feces. Bugs.
The funny thing is, like, we're making memes of it, but it's like, you can make it. Isn't this kind of what Dune does? You know, the whole kangaroo mouse thing?
The little mouse, which is cool. That's cool, I like that. It's, as opposed to just going for the most boring choice ever. Of like, it's, I don't know, it reminds me of Dave Filoni, like, and him being like, wolves, they're pretty cool, aren't they? Like, yeah, they are, but there are many other animals that are also interesting and cool that exist, not just wolves and lions. God damn.
So, one bit of this that I do want to defend in the tiniest of ways, which by all means call me a moron for trying to do this. But I'm sorry. The one that they give to Nemesis is a storm cloud. They say that she's as fierce as a storm, and the storm is the mother of us all. Hence, obviously, like the mother parallel with her backstory. I'm not quite sure what the storm is the mother of us all means, but if we kind of blow past that, basically she gets quite emotional as the others start partying, which is, it's what you've got on the screen right now. Like, she looks at the gift and she's kind of reflecting on what she's just been told, the fact that she's just been given a gift by someone who is relying on her to defend them, and that they're, I guess, recognizing that she is a maternal type figure. That's all I've got, and that is...
I remember we were watching this, we were like, oh, sweetheart, you put so much work into such a shit film.
I know.
This is not fair.
You have the material, like, you are straining so hard to inject your character with any character at all.
It's fascinating to see this level of acting.
Right? That's the other thing, which is that we know that this is Nemesis's backstory, so we know that it's thematically resonant. The villagers don't know this because she doesn't talk to them about it at any point. Like, the point of the later character roundtable scene is that they're all confessing things that they don't normally speak about. So the villagers are consciously tapping into a thematic thing for the sake of we who know it, but they have no reason to know it themselves, so they have no reason to be doing it.
Well,
They don't understand where they recognize it from.
The idea that she would be considered like a mother figure after the grain sequence is bizarre. Like,
it's Snyder speaking through the character to just declare who these characters are thematically.
again,
what the scene is.
it's that the character development is implied. We have that tiny little, like 20-second long bit where the kid goes to like tickle Nemesis's nose with a bit of grain, and she like grabs it, and he's kind of freaked out, and then she kind of like does this tiny little inkling of a smile.
Smirk.
Yeah, and that's it. And like
She's like a
Zack
mother.
Snyder evidently thinks that that's enough to establish that there's going to be some kind of an emotional connection between her and the kids that are kind of fucking around with her and like poking her and trying to find out, what her deal is. And then he stops and doesn't do anything else. Like he's missing the meat of the story. He's got the suggestion of an idea, and then he's got the payoff here where she basically gets emotionally overwhelmed because of the immense like motherly responsibility that she is having to take on.
He also does these things on the fly, because I'm pretty sure none of these kids existed in part 1. Like,
No, they didn't.
These things happen, so
No.
they just spawn children at some point in the intervening. Maybe kids just grow really fast on this planet.
Also, who is that
Absolutely.
boy's parents? Is the suggestion that he's an orphan? Because
No
if
idea.
they made that more explicit, then it could be like, well, that's why he's particularly attached to Nemesis. He's curious about her, and she kind of takes him in as like almost like an adoptive child in like the 3 days that they've known each other.
Modok's son, because he dies in part 1, doesn't he? And then
Yeah, they could have done that. Yeah,
his orphan son.
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe that's in the extended version. Who knows? But
Maybe.
I don't know why you wouldn't make that
I was kind of
explicit.
wondering
because-
where his parents were.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh well. But we got nothing.
Then we just get like a minute of him dancing, and then Tyler sings a song.
Yeah, that goes on for like another 3 minutes. Yep.
It does. It's just, and I imagine that Snyder's like, what do you mean I'm building character? And then if you ask how, I wonder what his answer would be.
Well, the words are all in another language though, so
Yeah, I don't even know what he's
Yes,
thinking
like,
about.
Yeah, it's like
Having
ding,
a
dong,
shot
ding,
of the
dong,
robot
dong.
staring into the cosmos, and it's just, he does nothing with it. He wasn't even trying to do anything.
You need to show, I don't know how we managed to do it, but like Snyder made the night sky kind of like ugly looking. I don't even know how he accomplished it. Like, I don't know how he managed to make looking up at the night sky look garish, but he did it.
Yeah, look at
I
that.
don't get it.
Like a
Look
mud
at that
puddle.
shit. What the hell is that? Look at that. That's so lame. It's the sky. It's great as it is. It's just like, yeah, that's
Why are you fucking up the sky, Zach?
What are you doing?
Come on, man. How did you do this? It's now I'm getting real sad because I'm thinking about in WALL-E. It's one of my favorite shots in WALL-E when you see the galaxy reflected against his eyes as he's flying towards the axiom, and it's like, man, dude, that whole sequence is like, man, that's so good. Like, it's so good. WALL-E out in space for the first time, standing by the window, pointing out at the sky, looking at Eva, like, hey, do you see this? Ain't this cool? And meanwhile, what do we got here? It's like, yeah, look at that ugly sky right there, huh? Yeah, what are you thinking about, Mr. Robot? Are you thinking about how you're gonna wait until all of the villagers are dead before you try to help them?
I'm just waiting for the script. Robot X Machina.
And then you just reminded me. So the robot. I don't know if you want me to wait, but the scene with the robot where he's talking to Cora. Have we done that yet, or am I skipping ahead?
That's way. That's
Okay,
that's right.
yeah.
That'll.
I'll hold off then. I'll hold
Yeah,
off.
we're setting up training them now, right? That's like the next step.
Yes, this is the final day of their preparations where they accomplish an inhuman number of things.
To
in a
be
day.
clear, in the chat, right? They are placing their bags of grain all over their buildings because that acts as a shield, and they're also creating like
That's been
sandbag sort of chest-high walls with them as well. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Yes, while digging an intricate set of tunnels all throughout the village.
Dude, those tunnels look clean as shit. They have like
they're amazing.
support beams in them. I was like, you did this in like 1.5 days or something.
Well, they
That's-
activated them You did it while you were all being trained how to use weapons. You did it while retrieving a ship from a crash site and doing maintenance on it. You did it while moving all of the grain and stacking it up in front of all of the
Dude,
buildings.
them getting
While you were retrieving all of your ammo.
them getting the ship is so stupid because they waste so many people to get there, but then it just works.
Yeah, it just
should have
works.
just tried turning it on first before you just dragged everybody.
Right, it was. It's sitting there for what they say is like 2 seasons, totally
Yeah.
exposed to the elements. It's even got pigeons fucking nesting in it, and it works.
And the premise is that it crashed on the planet. How did it crash if it still works?
I got nothing, man. Like, if they'd fixed that in the previous movie, they could have taken it to wherever they needed to go. Why? You know what I mean? Wasn't that the whole thing in the previous movie? They needed to find a pilot to get them to places.
Oh my god, you're right. Yes, fucking hell, because the reason why the plot of the first film happens, they find their pilot and he's like, yeah, I know some big dick rebels that can help you. And if they hadn't specifically met the pilot who knows that, then they would have gone straight to find the Blood Axes and General Titus. Tarak and Nemesis would not be in the film. So the only reason Tarak and Nemesis are in the film is because they forgot that they have a spaceship.
Yep. This is what I mean. It actually makes me wonder if he wrote, and like, it's like he wrote the script for the part 1, and it was like locked in, and he couldn't make any changes, and then he made like mistakes in part 2 that like almost stem from making a sequel to something where you set down, you established facts that you can't change, that you then counter later on. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's really weird. It doesn't feel like it was all written at the same time, because why would this mistake be in there?
You know for a fucking fact you would have been like, how do I solve the fucking dreadnought ship thing? Like, how do I beat this? Like, what if they fly in there themselves with a ship? It's like, well, where would they have a ship from? It's like, I guess they could commandeer one, which, by the way, would have been way smarter. It would make way more sense. But no, it's like, no, they always did have one, because she arrived on this planet at some point, and yeah, there we go, I did it. I'm smart.
It's really clunky how they did it as well, because if I remember correctly, there's a line where one of them says, yeah, when we first found it, it was like in very bad shape, but it still crashed at the same side. So there's like an implication that he maybe did some fixing to it, possibly.
But it's funny as well, because he says how long has it been there. He says 2 seasons. It's like, is that a cycle? How many is that? What is 2 seasons to a cycle?
They do that like 2 or 3 times. It's like, oh, how long is a cycle? It's like, I don't know what that means, but thanks for the info, I guess.
I think from what I recall from the novelized version, like it's Anthony Robotkin who fixes the ship, so it's always been there. But like over the course of, because like the narrative sort of dovetails with him. It's not very like explicit, but there's like little intersection chapters where like you just follow him on his little adventures, which are way more interesting than the actual story. But he sort of does these running repairs on the ship, so when they do need it, eventually, it's like at least it explains why it didn't work before and does work conveniently now.
Well, it's amazing because the film, she just goes in, turns it on, and is like, wow, it's on.
It removes the bird nests from the engines and just fired it up.
Yeah, so does that they actually say, wow, it still works, which is like,
does that mean that the robot is the hand of Zack Snyder frantically trying to make his plot work in universe? Like he's the robot is there and it makes sure that everything happens. Is that pretty much?
He can't even be bothered to do that in the film. It's whoever he paid to do the novelized version who had that very good idea.
Oh, okay, right. I was thinking maybe Zack originally came up with the idea and then just didn't film that because he figured, well, it's in the book, so who cares?
Or it'll be in the director's cut, because that's a great excuse.
Yes, yeah.
It's like a completely different movie experience.
Yeah.
And you're gonna watch it, aren't you, Gary? You're gonna watch all the extended version.
Yeah. Well, at least for these 2.
We did new Lord of the Rings.
You say these 2, as if you're not gonna watch it for the next 4. Come on.
Do you think he's gonna get more? Do you think he gets his 6 movie trilogy?
Like the maximum is he gets 1 more, and that they would be like, if your next one doesn't reach like a particular threshold of something, we're finished. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Because I don't buy for a fucking second that these get engagement. I just don't.
I mean, how could they? Nobody talks about them, and when they do, it's just very unfavorably for a couple of days.
They seem as a joke.
There's no way that that's good enough.
Yeah.
Yes, we are at the scene that I seriously think this might actually be like the worst storytelling accomplishment of his career. Like,
That's
it's insane.
so awful.
It's insane that he thought that this was acceptable.
Everyone on Earth understands what is wrong with this instantly, because it's like the baseline for the idea of telling a story. You do not do this ever. This is not how you do this.
Not after you had a scene where some random bitch like, oh, you're all so cool, here are these things that represent what you are. And then after this you have like the exposition roundtable where you tell the audience more backstory. It's like, okay.
So, yeah, and to understand what this is that Titus just says, let's have a group trauma dump session where we all relay our backstories to each other, and then it's accompanied by slow motion montages of their backstories, which, as has been mentioned many times, are more or less the same story over and over and over again. It's insane.
Also, it's 40 minutes into the second film.
That's unacceptable. it's like, you can't do this.
It's so funny to think about how it starts. Titus just stands up and says, we have to explain our backstories so that we can trust each other. I'll go first. He sits down and starts talking.
I murdered all your families. You know, that would have been funnier. This is where the parody comes in, because they could all do like really horrible shit to each other. That would have been funny.
Well,
This
the
should
thing
have been
is-
funny.
The thing is, he probably has done lots of horrible shit. I
Yes.
just don't believe he just said, like, I'm not going to attack this
Well-
capital this time. It's like, what?
To be crystal clear, when you write a character and you want their history to be made very clear to the audience, then you imply it through their actions, their experiences, their reactions to different people, their involvement in different scenes, what they happen to know at what times, what they will share in certain scenes with certain people in certain ways, how they interact with any fucking average object even can give you so much about what they know, where they've come from, and everything. That's hard. Like that's for a writer. Like fuck, that's work. You know, you gotta keep in mind everything about them. You gotta make sure it's all consistent. You gotta keep flagging it up. You gotta make sure people see it. You gotta try and integrate it into scenes in perhaps subtle ways. Sometimes not so subtle. It's okay. This is the easiest thing in the fucking world. This is just like, this is me. Hi. Next. This is me. Hi.
The
Next.
characters
Oh.
explain exactly what their story is and their motivations in the plainest terms possible.
Remember Hot Shots? Did you guys see Hot Shots?
Oh, it's been a long time.
Good ages.
The whole background about the father ejected from the jet, but he survived, and then he accidentally got some branches on his head, and they think it's antlers, and it's like, oh, my father shot you. We had you for dinner. That's what they should have done.
One of the things this makes me think of is One Punch Man, where Genos is explaining his backstory to Saitama, and he's just like, shut the fuck up. I don't care. Like, your backstory is goddamn long. Like,
Yeah, like 10 words or less, so I'm not listening.
I just can't believe that he thought that this was okay. Like, I can't believe he thought that this was acceptable, like, storytelling.
Yeah,
That you
and then-
can do this. Just have the characters say, let's share our backstories. Here's my backstory and my motivation, my central motivation. I am next. This is my story and my central motivation. I'm next. This is my story and my central motivation. Alright, lastly, it's me. This
One
is my
person
story.
does it, and then everyone else says, yes, same. Like,
yeah. That's what I mean. You have to understand, like, the aesthetic of the
Weirdly
places
similar.
are a bit different, sure, but, like, the story feels the same every time. It's so fucking boring.
Basically, all of them is, I was just doing my thing, then the mean Imperials did a thing, and then I ran away, and now
They're
I'm
all in slow motion. They're all in slow motion,
Yeah,
every
yes.
single one. There's not a single shot that is running at regular speed. Every single shot is slow motion.
And
There's some pretty ridiculous problems with each of them, just in terms of like the story that they're telling.
Yeah,
Nemesis
especially
is one I think
Titus
is my
immediately when
This one's
you
your least favorite?
And Nemesis is probably my favorite just because her
Oh,
backstory
that's
is I
fun.
lived in a peaceful fishing village, but it
Yeah.
wasn't always peaceful. So we kept a couple of lightsabers around, and I cut off my own arm, and just lucky that I have a plug-and-play robot one that I can just stick in right there, and it's all fixed now, and it's great. And now I am revenge.
do you like how she says, I activated the blades with my blood, and then
Yeah.
the ancestor told me how to
my
fight?
ancestors
Yeah,
told me
that's
how to
right.
fight.
So she was just a regular like fisherman, and then she
Yeah.
plugged her arms into her ancestor's robot arm blood thing, and then the
She
blood
learned
told
how
her
to
how to fight.
Yeah,
Became
that's
Katana.
ridiculous.
Can we agree
And
that's
the,
the edgiest fucking
not
character
bad.
Zack Snyder's ever made?
It's
Yes.
so funny.
It's
Absolutely, it's the
absolutely
edgiest
hilarious.
character he's
Well,
made.
also I don't know if you can get the shot here. So just when she is holding the sword above her arm and she's like about to do it, because in the box that she opens, there's two swords, and obviously she uses two swords. Yeah, there we go. So there's also two robot arms,
Yeah.
and it gets made clear later in the film that you cannot just hold one of these swords because they're incredibly fucking hot, even the handle. I don't know why you designed it that way, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So she has, in this shot right there, she has already replaced her right arm
Yeah.
with a robot arm, which which means that she's cut off her right arm somehow, and she's now using her right robot arm to cut off her left arm to replace it with a robot arm.
So how does she screaming in pain?
And how does she do the first arm? Is my question.
Yeah.
Because she can't hold the sword.
Well, she stabbed it into the ground because, as we know, these things, when you stab into any material, they just stop moving once they're in. And then she cut her arm off by, pushing it into it when it was stabbed into the ground. Easy, done and done.
I like how, as well, in her story, it's, because the cringe rebel lady, the Hamburglar, she's like, I came from a little village like this one, and she also said, like, I come from a little village, and then the last guy, like, came from, basically from royalty, Tarek was, and it's like, why is there never anybody who's like, I came from a middle-sized city, like, I came from Indianapolis or something? They're always from either the most important parts of the civilization, or a tiny, peaceful little village.
Middle class anywhere.
This film's begging for that character in the first film, but like well written, the mercenaries, to just be here and say, I'm doing it for the money.
Yeah,
That's it.
Well,
Like, I don't give
well,
a
they had
fuck
that-
about any of this.
They had that guy and they killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have had him in this film and just like, he could just say, yeah, I'm just doing it because I want money, like, fuck it, I don't care. Or they could have had him just make up some absurd backstory by copying the details of everyone else's and just see if they notice.
Oh, dude, that was so funny. He like collects pieces of all the other stories, makes his own one, and then they'll look at him and he's just like, yeah, I'm just kidding. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I love this. Two Rocks, the hippogriff rider, his
Yeah.
mom, just so nobly commits suicide.
I don't know what the fuck we're supposed to make of this. This
What
was so much.
the hell is that?
Was that just me? I was surprised that he was like here in like a city and like some blood or whatever, because I thought he was just like some weird tribe man who
No.
He
walking around.
dresses as fucking Mowgli for the rest of the film, and
Yeah.
and uses axes, and yet it turns out he comes from this incredibly advanced. I say incredibly advanced society. They do ride griffins against battleships, which is not a good idea. But
Not a good
I don't
idea.
understand why he has the fashion change, for example.
Well,
Yeah.
so apparently he must have been somewhere that taught him to use all these axes and stuff really well, because it seems like he was just next in line in the family to be the next king or whatever, and then he just fucked off to somewhere, got smuggled off the planet, and is now super warrior man.
I like how in the story, he says at the end, like, the last time I cried was when my dad died, is what his line is like, dude, what is this? Like,
Well, and why did they show us that when his mom is slowly committing suicide and he does nothing about it? He's just like,
He just turns around and leaves.
Oh,
Guess
Mr.
yeah,
Mom.
go.
I don't, it's like, I don't even understand why, because he says, like, she didn't want to run, and she wanted to, like, preserve the bloodline, so she killed herself. I don't
Oh, okay.
understand.
Good.
Like, I
Also-
don't understand what we're meant to conclude from this.
He also says after the flashback, the quote is, I ran for duty's sake, for the preservation of a kingdom and a bloodline that no longer exists. So the kingdom doesn't exist, but the bloodline does, because the bloodline is sitting here telling us
Yeah.
the backstory.
Exactly.
That's why he left.
The worst one is Antifa Screaming Girl. Her familiarity with Ray Fisher's character. We got the famous scream, and we finally got their backstory.
It's like,
Well, that one
do
is,
the
like,
scream.
Her backstory is that she came from a small village and then got turned into a slave, and then the resistance came along and blew up, like, the whole area and probably killed a bunch of the slaves.
Kill a bunch of the slaves.
And emerging from the smoke is like, yeah, there's Cyborg. Look at how cool he is.
But by the way, now that I see it on the screen, why is she just cutting into the stone at the entrance of this mine?
Clearly
she's a
just
stone farmer.
mining the stone entrance.
She's mining the rock.
Right here, they already have a hole that goes
Perfectly
inside.
normal behavior. Maybe that
No,
was like
it's
her
not.
first date. She has no idea what she's doing.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, just cut the stone, I guess.
It's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
And yeah, all in fucking slow-mo, just non-stop slow-mo.
All in slow-mo. And it's just bombing the shit out of people, and somehow the slaves survived.
Even though there's
Just
no
cut all
way.
the
Most, look at this.
Well, yeah, she could easily have been killed.
Yes.
I was liberated.
I was liberated because I accidentally lived.
It's one of those things where it's like, can I join you guys? They're like, yeah, I guess. Who are you?
Yeah, I guess.
More bodies, why
Oh,
not?
guys aren't the Imperium? Oh, Sorry.
The riveting stuff.
Oh, well, and Titus's storyline is that like he was sent to a planet to intimidate them to like vote to be annexed, and they voted for freedom.
Yeah.
And then he fought with them, and then he surrendered himself for the lives of his men. So Balisarius just decided to kill his men in front of his eyes with a massive orbital blast.
Yeah,
Like,
it's also really stupid because
Speed.
as I was trying to say earlier, I was like, why did he refuse the orders here? Because he probably already, I don't know, killed thousands of people before this. Like, why was this capital a change of heart?
I think it's just that they fought for their freedom, and that inspired him. So he decided the cowards who didn't fight for their freedom, whatever, screw you guys. But the ones who did, now I realize the error of my ways. And then he says like.
I was going to say, I don't know why he would be, because he's been serving as a general under Balisarius for at least a period of time. This can't be his first mission, like you said. But so why would he believe that Balisarius would accept his terms? He has to know that he can't get out of it.
Balisarius is cartoonishly evil, and he's like, this is the first decision, that I just don't like from you, man. Okay.
And then he says basically, he states his motivation as like he says that his surrender and courage condemned him, so he will never surrender. And it's like, all right, I'm done. Now next story.
Next story.
It's so bad.
Next story.
What's pointing out, like his response to his men being killed in front of him is to go get drunk and fight in the Colosseum, right? And yet, at the end of the movie, we discover that he already knows that, if we're doing the spoiler at this point, the princess is still alive. So what was he doing? Just pissing about in the Colosseum rather than doing something useful with his life, like trying to track her down? Would that not have been a more natural response?
No.
I can't think of a possible circumstance that he could reveal in film 3 that would explain how Titus knows that the princess is alive and still make his actions make sense. I don't see how that could possibly work.
I also would have thought, like, doesn't he want to pull her aside and be like, what the fuck happened? Because he knows who she is, right? Skaargård lady.
Yeah, he knows.
All he knows though is that she was unsuccessful. That's
like,
all he should know.
if you were him, wouldn't you be like, can you tell me your POV? Because like the story's crazy, and I assume it's a bit bullshit because of Balisarius. But yeah, just tell. But no, instead he's like, tell us your story. She's like, no. And he goes, come on.
Are you sure you told us everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she starts, and then she's like, you've not been drinking alcohol anymore because you're concerned about the fight. I'm like, okay.
Tell me your story.
We need another slow flashback. Come on.
We go to Guna, and Guna's backstory is that he's not interesting enough to have one. So
Yeah. I'm a farmer.
He's
I'm a farmer.
just chilling. He's not allowed to have a story.
They should have had a slow-mo sequence of like, one day I was farming and I fucked up. I made a farming mistake, and then he collapses to his knees in slow motion and starts crying. From that
Yes.
day on, make a mistake farming again.
I stood on a noble frog.
I was going to say, like, maybe he fucked up, like, counting the grain, which means that some people starved or something, because in the first film told us that he was the grain counting man or something.
Oh no.
Or like,
And I've never failed to count things properly since.
Yeah, he's also the guy that went to.
Please don't ask me to count.
He's the guy that went to whatever the name of the Mos Eisley place is in the first film. I can't remember what it's called. And he's the guy that traded their surplus with people like the Blood Axes. So maybe he trusted the wrong person and got like one of the other farmers killed as a result. Like, there's loads of things you could do there.
No, we had to do this. This was what we had to do. But yes, I think on that note, since that's probably like a good slot for the halfway point, Gary is going to have to leave us.
Sorry.
It's alright. We already knew we would take this long getting through it. I actually thought we might have been a bit fast with this one, but it is just so cringe. Like, there's just so much that's wrong.
No, I had to get through that characterization scene. That was something to behold, man.
Impressive, to say the least.
I think you're right. I think not that film school's doing anybody any good these days. They should show this in the future to like, this is what you don't do.
It would be funny if they open with like, they watch it and they're like, hands up, is this a good movie? And if someone puts down, it's like detention, right? Immediate detention. You failed. Before you go, we'll let people know. I would say that the real BBC plushies have indeed launched.
Yes.
You're like,
Jimmy Johns wants to make that
For those who watch the show, they're very much referenced memes. You'll understand it very well, but we got us the X-Ray Girl plush along with Peeping Tom as us, the team, right, in the ongoing story of him trying to defeat evil by trying to get a look at the natural beauty
look
of
at
life.
women's boobs. Yes.
Yeah.
All he wants to do is look at women's boobs, but he accidentally thwarts evil in the process.
And then, of course, Gary of Riviere, the classic reference, because Gary's quite into video games. We tend to bring him on the video game episodes because he's like the insight is just flowing. As everyone knows, Rebel Moon is based on the video game The Witcher.
Yes.
Very inspired. And
and all that Fallout knowledge I had, we were talking about that.
I have idiotically
Schooled you all.
not put a link in the description. It will be on the re-upload, so if you listen to this in future, you can access it pretty easily. But it's easy to find.
No.
It's just makeshift for them to search our names. But there's also the Cthulhu version of my plushie. I've seen people call it Battle Damage Mauler, which is a pretty good name for it as well. I thought it was a pretty deep one that they came up with for that. I was very happy with it. But yeah, if you buy them together, you get the 15% discount. It is the real BBC team. And of course, thank you so much, Gary, for joining us. We shall. I'll catch you on the next thing I see you on. I saw you almost like every day for this week.
Yeah. And I'll see you in a couple days.
Yeah, see you in a couple of days.
Right after I finish my Rebel Moon review. So, yay.
Plenty to work with.
Plenty to work. It's like, how am I going to keep this down to like a reasonable amount of time? And I know I'm telling this to the long man, but
we always
I've
keep
only
it a
got so much
reasonable
time
amount of
to paint.
time. We
try.
never go over.
Guys, it was a pleasure. Please continue watching, everybody. These guys are awesome. And subscribe to all their channels. I'll catch you later.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
Gary.
See you later.
See ya.
We may or may not have someone else pop in at some point. But if they don't, you don't have to mention who they are. It's fine. They may or may not be too busy. It's all right. It turns out not many people liked Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. I just can't believe it. And so many people are just ready to shit on it.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was like best movie ever made. Said no one ever.
I did see there was a comment on the FNT episode, I think, that said something like, I knew you guys would just shit all over Zack Snyder for no reason. Like,
Oh no, there's a reason. There's a reason.
I swear. I can explain, don't worry.
For reason, actually.
What do you think Part 3 is going to be called?
I was trying to think of this earlier when I was writing my script for the video, and I couldn't think of anything dumber than the Scargiver.
The skin grafter.
Ooh.
I mean, it's got to have something to do with the princess, right? Because that's the cliffhanger for film 3. They're going to go and find the princess.
The Princess's Diaries?
It's just the Child
one-
of Fire and the Scargiver. It's not like it implies a third one there, does it? It's like,
No. I mean, one potential option that they have the route to go down is because Tarak says that he's going to, like, once he's done here on Veld, he's going to go back to his home and see what's left and try and pick up the pieces. And then he changes his mind at the end of the film and is like, yeah, right, let's go find the princess. So maybe we're going to get Tarak a Rebel Moon story as like a spin-off. That could maybe happen. But, I mean, names for Part 3 that are princess related?
The Magical Princess.
That's not cringe enough, though. It's not as cringe as... Wait, what was it? Divine Resonance. That was what the subtitle said. Rebel Moon Part 3, Divine Resonance. That's my answer.
Would be pretty cringe, yeah.
well, we can always kick on with the next scene, because this scene is pretty much drained of its magic. They really did... you make so much use of it. Because at this point, you know everyone really well, I would say. And it's like
Well, yeah, you understand their stories and their motivations and
Their
the
plight.
in the clearest terms possible. That's right. But now it's like the training day.
Where you'd sub-traded, it's more traded. Oh wait, we gotta...
Well, yeah,
It's the robot scene next, isn't it?
Oh wait, no. They were talking about he like continues to talk about his plan, like that he basically it is Titus's expectation that the Mother World will send a handful of officers down and they'll take him in close quarters combat and then negotiate for the safety of the village, which is just like, man, you're delusional. Like, why do you even think that this is how unlikely is this outcome? Like, surely.
It makes sense for maybe for someone more naive. Maybe Gunnar says this, or Gunnar. Maybe he says that. But yeah, General Titus already knows from experience, first-hand experience, That is not going to happen. He has tried this before and it didn't work.
Presumably he knows more than anybody that if he defies the Imperium this, like, brazenly, like, why wouldn't they just destroy the village?
Well, also, if they offer them the grain, if they offer the Imperium the grain, and the Imperium's like, yeah, cool, deal's a deal, they take the grain, the villagers will have then lost their bargaining chip, which means that there is no reason why the Imperium wouldn't just blow them apart.
Yeah, why wouldn't they just blow them up? Why wouldn't they just hang out in low orbit? You know,
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know the whole,
they are not in a position of power. They have no power in this situation.
You know they're doing that at the beginning where it was like we're relying on the principle that they always return once an admiral is taken down in battle or but just die in general. And then it's like they always do that, right? And Titus is like they sometimes just don't follow their own thing. It's like, so what if, Titus, that they just blow us up because we don't even have that much grain? I just pictured him being like, no, they would never, ever do that, no.
They need the grain too much.
Yeah,
that was a line earlier in the film.
And then when they actually target them, he must have been like, but they would never blow up grain. There must be some crazy situation happening. it must be something insane.
Come on.
He like picks a bag up, starts waving it at the ship, like, what are you doing? We have grain. Don't blow us up.
But then we get this 30-second shot of the ship, the King's Gaze, flying to Vel. I think it lasts actually about 30 seconds. It's really long.
Well, how would you understand what's happening if we didn't have it?
It's like, I don't know what's happened, but after like the Snyder Cut, he's gotten less respectful of the viewer's time. Look at this shot. Look at how long it lasts for. Come on.
It's kind of surprising, honestly, that Rebel Moon Part 2 is only like 1 hour 50 minutes because it feels so much longer than that.
This
is
well,
also
because he'd probably say, yeah, but the first shot in A New Hope that lasts a while. It's like it lasts less time than this, and it's more iconic than this.
Well, think of the composition, the implication, like, because there are shots of the Death Star moving toward, like, you know, targets and everything, but it's so imposing and so unique. This is just its ship heading toward planet.
It's a ship, and it's flying to Rebel Moon. Look at this shit.
And
it's not an interesting shot
as well. Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, it looks made for TV, which technically it is, but not for this budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, there's nothing interesting about this, and the music as well. It's at this point that I notice, like, man, this music is really, it insists upon itself. You get these loud choirs constantly coming in, like, like, oh, I think my mic cut out when I did that. God damn it. It's my singing. It's terrible. It's really, really, really obnoxious.
Well, robot conversation then. That's next up, right?
That's right. Because he flies
just
into
before
the
we get it, because I'm confused about this plan. So they have one dropship, and it's their only air support, but it's also their only means of escape if things go wrong. And their plan is to fly it miles away and put it behind a waterfall, which will take them, you would think, ages to get to on horseback. It actually, in the event, takes about 3 seconds because time doesn't function in this film. But what exactly is the thinking behind this? If you're just going to go and pick it up later and bring it back anyway, like, would you not be able to hide it in a barn or put some more fucking
in a hole
over it?
Yeah, they could have dug a hole and stuck it in the hole. Like, they're very good at digging holes. They could easily.
They are very good at digging holes.
I don't know why they did this now as well, because the film almost draws attention to it, because Titus says, Cora, tomorrow morning, the morning of the day that the Imperium's coming, I want you to get in your dropship and I want you to hide it. Why not do it like now? Because if the Imperium arrives like an hour early, we know that they have planet scanning technology, which means that they would see where she's hidden it. And Cora would know that and Titus, fucking both of them would know that they have planet scanning technology. Nah, yeah.
Yeah, pretty stupid.
We are moving to the robot conversation. The first thing that I thought was really funny is that he's doing all this work, she's getting prepped and everything, she lands the ship, like, oh, there he is again, that fucking weird robot who wears all of his trophies and stuff.
How does he know she's coming here?
I don't fucking know. But she says, hi James, and he's like, the last time I was called that was by my Mechanicus Militarium leader as he died in my arms. And I just picture him being like, didn't ask, buddy. Like, I just said hello, okay?
I see, just quickly, there's a couple of people in chat who evidently didn't see the first film or they missed this. So, yeah, the name of the military branch of the Imperium, if this wasn't already Warhammery enough, is called the Mechanicus Militarum, which is the name of two separate Warhammer 40,000 factions that they've just slammed together. And the leader of one of them is Belisarius, another name directly from Warhammer.
I've seen a meme of just Star Wars title and 40k, and then just a little people with a hammer smashing them together. That's what Rebel Moon is. It's like...
So I'm not going to jump forwards, but the thing that Platoon mentioned earlier with the big face on the King's Gaze, I did a little bit of a deep dive on that, and I did a little bit of research on the wiki. That is heavily ripped from the backstory of one particular faction in Warhammer, but I'll wait until we get there. It's shocking how similar it is.
Doesn't surprise me at all, because everything's so shallow in this. It's all like, I really like that movie, let's get that in there. It's like, yeah, people will like that.
Pretty much. Just grab and throw them in a blender, and it's like a shitty blender. It doesn't really work very well, so there's lots of big chunks of shit left in it, and then pours it out into a smoothie that's got all these chunks of crap. Yeah. Rebel.
This is a movie now.
Shallow. This little dialogue exchange where she calls him James. I don't think these two have actually ever interacted before. This is their first actual speech, and yeah, apparently they're already on first name terms. But she calls him James, and he says that he doesn't mind it because it makes him feel something other than hopelessness. I don't understand what that's supposed to
Dude,
be.
this is what I mean. Like, imagine having a friend like that. Every time you talk to you, like, hey, bud, he's just like, you know, the death of all of us is inevitable in many ways. You'd be like, shut the fuck up, James.
I mean, they then do the we're not so different, you and I. We're
Yeah.
both designed by the Imperium to kill.
It's like it'll be us fighting against
I don't
them.
even
He's like,
understand.
okay.
The funny thing is,
Oh, go ahead.
go for it. No, go for it.
Okay. I'm just questioning their programming capabilities, or I just don't understand what this robot is supposed to be, because apparently it has like feelings, but it's still a robot, and then it can stop some things, but now he has that blockage written away by the other lady existing or something. I'm just so confused as to how these robot mechanics are supposed to work.
Yeah, there was like a
I
bunch
think
of
it meant to conclude he's basically a person, except it's weird because he doesn't want to help the villagers for some reason.
He takes fucking
Yeah.
ages, even though the one girl that he really wants to protect is among them.
Yeah, he explicitly says, I think it's in this scene, that the reason why he intervened and saved her from the rapists in the first film is because it woke up a part of his programming that I guess she reminded him of the princess that he was never able to save. Basically, is what they're doing.
Yeah, he said nothing
but then-
can come to harm her or destroy her.
Yeah, but then it takes like the entirety of this movie for him to realize that wait, hold on a minute. But if the Imperium kills their way through all the villages, that means that they're going to kill that girl. So then he jumps in and stops them. He doesn't
Yeah, when
do that
had
early.
if he'd gotten involved from the beginning, like this whole fight would have been very different. Same, by the way, for the fleet that comes in at the end, which is still so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that robot should have downloaded some more RAM.
And also, Cora would have known how effective this robot is in combat because when we see it, it's like unbelievably effective. It's like having a Terminator that can do acrobatics.
Piece of
It's
shit,
insane.
man.
You would think that given that Cora has to know that, she might put in a little bit
Yeah.
more effort to convince him to join their team than we're not so different, you and I. She should not accept no for an answer.
Well, and instead he just says you can't win, and then runs off. Just runs away.
Oh fuck! Like when
You can't win, Lamau.
when the ship arrives and they're just talking about how clever the villagers are for surrounding themselves in grade is such a joke. This is
I
easily
like
parody.
because like when Snyder wrote that down, they wrote clever, and he's like, yeah, I am pretty clever. I'm a smart boy.
My
I'm
God.
such a good screenwriter and director.
But like with this hand, there's no reason to assume they actually know what's in those sacks. Like they don't. It just for some reason it shows up as red.
Well,
It's just like alright.
It's weird. It's like it's simultaneous. This scanner is like it's able to detect that there are a bunch of women and children in the town hall, but it can't detect all of the like trenches that they've dug out in the field.
Yeah. See, where you fucked up there, Frankie, is that they explicitly show a scene where they pile some soil on top of those.
I like how they pile it on while it's visible from
Yeah.
the side. Like, it'd be funny if someone was looking out the window and said, the farmers are like, they're doing stuff down there. They're like covering up.
Well, like, there's a guy posts his head out. Hey, what's that? What are you doing? They're like, nothing.
You can see them, they can see you, okay?
Yeah, you might be able to see that. The guy with the telescope is back. He's like, hey, wait a minute.
They also, like, are the village... This is a question that I have, but then the film just, it breaks. Again, are the villagers aware that the Imperium can scan them? Because Cora, Titus, and Aris would have to know that they have that technology. Which means that... Yeah, which means that the villagers have to know that the Imperium knows that they've stashed the women and children in the Longhouse.
But they seemingly don't know what the ship is that's coming from, because when the King's Gaze arrives in orbit, there's this sort of long shot where Titus looks up in almost like shock and horror and says, a dreadnought. As though he didn't know that was weird. It was already coming.
Yeah.
So, but they should have already known that was what was coming, and if they did know, then yes, you're right. They should absolutely know what its capabilities are, but the film seems to think that they didn't know that was what was coming for them.
Yeah, they have to have known because they had discussions in film 1 involving what the threat was, and Titus was present for. Unless he was too drunk or whatever. Like, I don't know if that's what they're going for, but...
So you know what's funny?
Yeah.
When I was watching it for the first time, and they show the soldiers getting close to the town hall with the women and children, and they keep coming back and forth, I was like, oh, I've seen this a million times. It's going to be they burst the doors open and it's a trap. It's not actually the town hall, or it's not actually the place we think it is. I was like, oh no, it is. Okay. it's such a, like, I expect a lame twist. It was like, no, you just don't get anything. It was like, okay, sorry, I didn't even, why did I even...
They hide the children in little bags of grain, and then both of them thing.
Yeah, give them grain mech suits so they can't be attacked.
Well, it just reminds me of this comic page where some guy has surrounded himself with babies, like taped lots of babies.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just all great.
This movie's very clever, as is just pointed out by the villain character. It's very, very, very clever. When they launch their fleet, by the way, it's just like, this is over. This is
done.
Fucking over.
Look at all these things.
So I counted the number of ships that you see. There are 23 drop ships that you see on the screen at once. And even, as far as I'm aware, even the drop ships that just, dump their payload and leave, they have, like, weapons. They have cannons on them.
Oh, there's like a tank cannon on top, like small Gatling thingies or whatever.
So, like, to be clear, what they need to do is, because at this point the rebels don't know, or the villagers don't know that Noble is alive, and they don't know that Noble is here to get Cora. They believe that the reason why they haven't been nuked from orbit is because they've covered themselves in grain, and the Imperium really wants the grain, so they're ready to make a deal.
Yeah.
But hold on, this film is stupiding my brain. I've forgotten.
Oh no.
I've forgotten exactly where I was going with this. Hold on. No, it's gone. It'll come back to me in a minute.
And it's yeah.
No, right, yeah. We've gone. Sorry, Zach tried his best to break my brain. So, what the Imperium needs to do, what Noble needs to do, is he needs to. I mean, he wants the grain. Some would say he needs the grain, but he also really needs Cora. So what you do is you point your guns at the village, and you say, Cora, come here and get in this dropship, otherwise everyone fucking dies. He doesn't have to land an army to do that.
Yeah.
He also doesn't need to land all of his army outside the village, on one side of the village, as opposed to landing it, in the village, given that they can fly, or rappel down onto the rooftops, in which case, you immediately defeated the whole trench warfare plan. Or maybe put some artillery up on the surrounding ranges, which doesn't have the nuclear capability of an orbital bombardment, but is still quite powerful. Like, there is no way these people should lose this fight, and yet, inexplicably, they do.
Well, yeah, they have total air superiority. Total and complete and utter air superiority.
Have you considered one secretly good guy boy in the sky, though? Even that would fuck up their entirety. Isn't one of them is smoking on the way in, by the way? The rest of them aren't. It's just like, what's the deal with that?
Oh, yeah.
So that shot right there that's on the screen right now, it's a visual inconsistency, because where's the big black plume of smoke? When you see like the rear view shot, just out on the screen, It's yeah, there you go. It's just gone. Where is it? What are we doing?
Listen, that costs more money. You can't see more loot. Oh, I guess it's the bigger ones. They all make. Yeah, because it's in the. You got another wide at one point. You could see the actual smoke is trailing behind it, but the other shot it wasn't.
Yeah. So I think it's the larger ships that are dropping the
Yeah.
like tanky spider robot boys,
Mhm.
and I'm guessing that the reason why they smoke like that is because they, of course, they run on coal, 19th century technology.
No.
That is my guess, but then it makes me wonder what are the smaller ships running on.
Dude, that's the worst when it makes sense in the way that it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? You're like, no,
Yeah.
that's probably why. No.
Like maybe if they had multiple generations of ship. Yeah, I mean, like I'm trying to think like of an example of this, but I don't think I've ever seen anything quite this dumb in a sci-fi movie. And I'm thinking of like in Star Wars, you've got the different ships. You've got the Y-wing and the X-wing. I think it's only those two that you see in A New Hope. And maybe like what you could have potentially done there is made it clear that maybe the X-wing was developed more recently and it has more up-to-date technology and the engines are cleaner and it doesn't have as much of like a visible exhaust. They could have done something like that, but I mean, there's no. Why don't the smaller ships also run on coal? Is kind of what I'm getting at here.
This is the thing with parody at this point. If you were to parody this film, I think if you know, like Spaceballs, if they were making that and you go like, oh, let's have our ship powered by coal, and they're all laughing, and then someone says like, well, they actually did that in Rebel Moon, like that would like we'd have to be sillier than that. And they go, okay, well, we'll have like a little compartment, you open it up, and that's like the core of the ship, and it's just a mouse and a hamster wheel type that sort of situation. And they'd be like, yeah, and Zach's like, oh, that's a good idea. And they're like, no, stop, like we can't get any stupider anymore. Like we
Told you to not let Zach into this room.
you're ruining
Be
our
like
ability to
Simpsons.
make movies.
It would be like The Simpsons already did it, but with Rebel Moon.
Yeah. The thing is, no one would have saw it, so how could they know? They would have been like, wait, you actually did that? You have to prove it like on your phone. Like, yeah, you did it. Look.
I love that the first thing that Noble does when he steps out onto the planet is he unbuttons his shirt, like, look at this scar.
Yeah.
Isn't it cool? You gave it to me,
You're a
Scargiver.
Scargiver, remember?
It's such a
You know for a
terrible
fact that
name.
Zach was like, that makes it meaningful. That makes the day meaningful. I had to.
Yeah. That's right. See, she is the Scargiver. She gave him one.
And then she killed him later, so it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
didn't really give him a scar there. Huh?
Fucking
The
hell.
exchange here is like so weird because Korra says like, yeah, take the grain and say you couldn't find any of us, otherwise we're gonna kill you. And it's like, oh, okay, he's just landed with a massive fleet, but sure,
Yeah.
you're in any position of bargain. It's just like, I think that there are actually more. No, there has to be. There has to be more soldiers on their side than there are villagers. There's
Oh,
like 200
100%.
villagers.
Well, yeah. Again, the crew of the Dreadnought is like 5,000 people.
That's right.
They're not all going to be soldiers, but like I don't know, half of them. Is that reasonable?
I think that even the amount that we see on screen who have landed as part of this
Oh, yeah.
initial forward force, there's so many of them.
Oh,
And
What
they've
you're
got
not
guns,
considering,
they've got armor.
Thingy, is that the barns are like spawn points for villagers, and so whenever you run out, they just create more.
But
Well-
to balance it out, it costs you 10 grain to make a civilian.
No, we need the grain. We can't.
That's the thing. It's how they balance it.
Damn.
It's now I have a question, and hopefully someone here can help me out. Does he know that it was Belisarius who was ultimately responsible for killing the royals, or
He can't know that.
Okay, so he believes that Korra did it, that she killed his king, his queen,
I
his
think-
princess.
I think what we're supposed to get from the film is that Belisarius and the other senators conspired to overthrow the king. They pinned the blame on Korra, which is why Korra is now the most wanted person in the galaxy. Or in the
Okay,
universe. So,
yeah,
which,
yeah. I knew that much. I just wasn't sure whether he knew. So think about it from his perspective. He's come to this planet to get the grain. That he was a bit of a dick when he came earlier, killing Modoc. That was pretty big. He's come to get the grain, and he's got standing before him the woman who he believes killed the entire royal family, including the princess. And he's saying, look, right, I'll take the grain, I'll leave the villagers alone, and I'm gonna bring you in. Is this not from his perspective? Is that not actually incredibly fair, really? That he would say I'm not gonna hurt any of these people who have corroborated with you somebody who I believe has actually done this, has done the crime itself. You know what I mean? Isn't it weird that
Yeah, so-
the story actually earnestly believes that she has done more than what she did, but that she did commit the crime. And he's like, yeah, even though you've conspired with all of these people to fight us, in order to protect you, who is a criminal, I'm just gonna bring you in. And that's the deal. I'll leave the villagers alone.
Mm-hmm.
He's meant to be a villain. You know, he's a bad guy.
I mean, I think at that point he's kind of doing a similar thing to what he did in film one, in that he's wearing this facade of being somewhat reasonable, because he he afterwards, when Cora basically rejects that, he afterwards tells her that, like, well, I've got my he calls them the Cryptea, which is apparently a reference to and he sent them up to the Longhouse to go and basically use the women and children as a bargaining chip, which basically all of that relies on the fact that this entire setup relies on the Imperium being able to scan the villagers, but also not being able to scan the villagers because they didn't see the little, like, what are they called, rabbit hole, foxhole? I can't remember what they're called. Yeah, with the rocket launcher in it that he's about to, like, blow all their shit up. But they were able to scan the Longhouse and they knew where the women and children are.
Stupid.
But Cora didn't know that they knew that. So
there is an inch of soil on top of the little flap, so that's why we can't see it. It's just like, fuck you. I'm not, it's just stupid. I wanted to bring up, by the way, it's absolutely a small detail, but it's just another opportunity for meaning that I think Zach fucked up, at least from what I can tell. Cora needs to get her hair out of her face. She's got a scene of, like, putting a band on or whatever. Then she decides instead to cut her hair to match it when she was working for the Imperium. Why?
Seems weird. Seems really weird.
It's not
Seems
the
like
opposite.
antithetical.
Yeah.
What she should do.
Why would you want to do that? Why would you want the hair that you had when you worked for them? It's like, well, because symbolically I'm now fighting against, like, well, what do you want the hair that you had when you were with these people? Isn't that more meaningful?
I guess the surface level version of that would be that she's maybe going into soldier mode, but on the other side. But that's it. Like, that's, I think, all you can get out of that.
I just the way I would assume any normal storyteller would see it is like that's the identity she had with them, but she's got a new one now with this new family she found, you know. The hair she has now, it's as silly as it sounds, is just cutting it so that it's exactly like it used to be. I was just like, oh, okay, you want to evoke the times that you were working for them? I don't know,
This is the way that Zack Snyder does films, though. He has no idea as to why she's doing it. He's just seen it happen in other films, so he wants her to do it in this one. That's how he does this kind of thing. The number of films you see that the protagonist cuts their own hair before a fight, particularly a young female protagonist, it happens before, so it happens again. There's a couple of Aliens references later, which happen in exactly the same way. The thing that's sort of striking me about this scene, though, is that it's like everything now is completely broken because they know the villagers are sort of operating on the assumption that these people do still want the grain above all. But the space Nazis know that they are not really after the grain, they're after Cora above all, and she's just walked directly at them, into them, and she's now standing a few feet away, surrounded by their soldiers. Why don't they just grab her and leave and then bomb the village?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, again, this is a piece of evidence that points me towards them actually needing, not wanting, the grain to get back to the Motherworld.
I mean, I think
that's the only explanation.
Based on the way that the battle plays out for the next 30 minutes, that they do actually need it. And when he decides they don't need it, he's being completely irrational. Like, I don't know. I don't know another way to throw it away.
I can't remember the exact wording that he uses when he basically changes his mind. He's like, yeah, we don't need the grain now. We have Cora. It's like, well, the one potential read of that is like, are you going to eat her flesh? Like, what does this mean? But the other.
Here at Papa John's, we know quality. This is what quality looks like. Handcrafted pizzas made in-house using the freshest ingredients, always served with extras, like our signature garlic sauce and peppercini peppers. Try Papa John's today. Better ingredients, better pizza, better get you some Papa John's. Today, you make the deal. Get 20% off your entire online order at regular menu price at papajohns.com.
Way around it is like he did a little line just after it that I think points in the direction of him literally being like, well, you know, we're going to just blow off a bunch of our soldiers now so they don't need to eat, which means that we're not actually short on food anymore. That was that was what I got from it, but I can't remember the exact line.
They could just eat the coal.
I'm just amazed that like a faction like this doesn't just have like some like protein goo, like toothpaste kind of thing that will just sustain, like it's not really food, it's just calories to just keep them going. Like that has to be
You
a
mean like
thing, right?
ration food in case of emergency kind of situation, like we were able to crack fucking decades, centuries ago even? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's just,
they're really far in terms of some tech, but they're really far behind in other tech. Apparently, cracking food is just something they haven't done yet. Oh yeah, and that's never dealt with, by the way. Guna gets everyone killed here.
Yeah, I was about to say,
But she makes the call to actually surrender for the sake of the villagers, which is like, it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
there you go. Like now you're making a choice where you're trying to preserve lives, and then he grabs a gun, shoots the bell, and initiates the attack that results in many villagers dying, and he is never confronted by her for making this call.
no, they don't mention that at all. And for some reason, they also don't get instantly killed both after he grabbed the gun, you know?
No,
She-
they
so-
just stand there
He's
and
just standing there, it's like, oh, what was that? Why did a bell rang? And then they come out with the blue balls and start shooting.
Yeah.
So when she goes to say goodbye to Guna, what she should have said is, they have men at the Longhouse ready to kill the children. We've been tricked. We can't fight them. I need to go with them. They have all the leverage. She could have said that, and it would have taken the same amount of time. What she says instead is, sorry, I won't let this place die for me, which is like as vague a thing as she could have fucking said, which of course then leads to Guna taking her gun and like triggering the attack because he thinks that she's giving up. He doesn't understand why she is essentially, surrendering. And yeah, she phrases what she says in such a way as to allow for the third act of the film to happen.
No,
pretty much. Look at face. No, none of the soldiers who see this guy pop out of the ground with a rocket launcher just shoot him. None of these hundreds of soldiers.
Nope.
No,
And they didn't
he's
know
about to
they
go on
already
his...
insane.
I mean, I'm gonna jump ahead because might as well. The farmers have planted like a massive array of bombs underground.
Yes.
And when they detonate, blow up this entire field. Why didn't they open with this? Why didn't they open with the massive set of bombs in their underground tunnels that like destroy a much larger portion of the battlefield than this opening salvo does?
Yeah,
Also,
so,
no, that
it's a last resort, right? And then the guy who presses the button has no idea where his own men are at the time he presses the button. And it's
Yeah,
sheer,
exactly.
well, I say sheer luck, but I'm sure like there's probably a scanner on the ship that would have detected a plot armor field around the entire village, and they just didn't think to look for it. But that's the only reason nobody dies in this.
Also, I guess they were also lucky that they actually came that way, because it doesn't seem like they have anything else anywhere else.
Yeah, they landed up in the mountains and
Yeah.
decided to walk down, they would have been screwed. All of their defenses. Because what you will notice about the defense of this village is it's kind of crazy that they managed to get all the villagers to go for it, because it's like a tiered defense system. Basically, they like line them up from the field in front of the village, and like the defenses are stacked the further they get in. The defense is designed in such a way that if you're like at the front, you're basically condemned to death because everybody else in the village will wait for you to get annihilated, and then for the Imperium to move forward before they launch their attack. So if you're out in the field, you will definitely die compared to the people who are much further back who have a way better chance of surviving. How did they get the villagers like to agree to this plan? That condemned several of them to certain death.
I think there are the best defense you could ever make of this is like the notion of a cavalry or some kind of defensive force that can flank. But one of the stupidest examples of how like he fucks this up completely is what's her name, Screaming Lady, Hamburglar. She gets involved with a ranged weapon from very far away in like the fucking end of the second act of the fight. Like what the fuck? Why haven't you been shooting the whole time? What is wrong with you?
And then she actually foregoes the ranged weapon to engage them in close quarters with her dagger.
Well, you see, she was about to get Jackson, so she had to leave.
It's really funny that none of the Seven Samurai are actually involved in the battle for a while. They leave the villagers to essentially just be slaughtered. Like look at this part here.
Oh wait, yeah, let's talk about the Man of Steel or BBS scene here. This unfortunately has been taken. The people knew this was coming in the trailer, but it's just like, Zach, why are you making him do a superhero landing?
It's so weird. He does like the menace walk and just beats people up.
Also, that bit that just happened there, I don't know if you could rewind to it. So just after he does his cringe face, you got the guy who walks up to the woman and he's like, oh shit, there's a guy behind you. Here, have a pistol and hold it backwards. And then he just snaps her neck.
Yeah.
And her face before it happens is like, I don't know, what is this? What do I do with this?
So
This is actually really funny. What do I do? Do you think she just didn't know when they were filming? She was like, what happens here? And then he grabs her, she's like, oh, I'm dead, right, yeah, I got it.
Dude,
Yes, I know.
this actually kind of reminds me of the Madam Web scene where he just punches the random guy in the diner that's just sitting there.
Yeah.
She legit looks like she has no idea what's going on.
I just wanted some brain. Ah!
But the dude who handed her the pistol, he has it the right way to be able to shoot her, and he can see no holes.
He's like, here, hold this. Hold him off, I want to get out of here.
And then he just stands there while this happens and lets himself get killed.
Yeah, he's still standing there because the camera moves backwards. Like, I feel like he shouldn't have been there, but then he just stands there to take another hit from Noble.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so
What?
stupid.
It's so stupid. It's
By the way, there's like an hour of movie left and it's basically all
Yeah.
like slow-mo action.
Pretty much.
God, it's so excessive. It's insane.
Yeah.
They didn't get the memo. Like, many people don't get the memo. When people think of Helm's Deep, for example, they're like, man, that was like an hour and a half action scene. I hope I can beat it in mine. It's like, it wasn't.
It actually wasn't as long as you think it was. About 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's about 20 minutes.
But I
I think it's because there's a lot of setup to it that it makes it feel like it's longer than it actually is. That is actually a question that I'll ask you guys. So, like, in Lord of the Rings, obviously, they set up Helm's Deep, like the geography of Helm's Deep, really, 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 really well. So that when the shit hits the fan, you can follow the action.
Yeah.
And the stakes. They also do an extremely good job of it in Seven Samurai, because you spend basically 2.5 hours in this village, and you understand where the river is and where the trees are and where the fences are and how many entrances there are, that kind of thing.
Also, the enemies in Seven Samurai don't have laser guns.
But that's true. They don't.
Plasma,
They don't have a planet
the great
destroying
slag,
red
which
one,
do you guys notice how bad it looks sometimes? The slag coming off of different things. Like, it looks like really shitty CG, the
Yeah.
blobs of it, which I would have thought would be easier to
looks like,
do than a lot of things.
It kind of reminds me of like the sort of effects in Super Smash Bros. Melee, like the kind of like the GIF images that they had to use.
Yeah.
Except they were made for the GameCube where they didn't have as many resources as you have for film.
I gotta ask, why do these guys wear armor? Like, because whenever anyone gets hit by a thing, it's just that they're dead. It burns all the way through them.
It's movie armor. I also do like how
Lightsaber fight, dude.
there's one guy in here that has a rifle, like a laser rifle, and he just instantly shoots the blade like multiple times.
Well,
And then all the other ones only have blades.
it's non-stop with this fucking part. Why was she cutting up the floor? What was
Because
that
it looks
about?
epic.
That's her thing that she does. It's
Why?
yes. It'll be in the extended version.
It's a battle rite.
It's symbolic of something, I guess. But it's
Yeah,
just-
it's her. No, maybe it's because she doesn't want to be doing it, but her robot arms are like, fuck you, this is what we did in our time. This is what the ancestors did.
I was surprised we didn't get her to say something like, I call upon the blood of my ancestors today, we defend the future generations, something cringe as fuck like that. But, yeah, these guys who enter this room, by the way, because you won't know it when this starts, I don't think anybody reasonably would, but when you see, everything we know about Nemesis, right, like a feared, famous, amazing warrior, especially with that stupid ending history with the blood and the ancestors and stuff, this setup, 4 guys with lightsabers and a guy with a rifle, and she's there. I was expecting her to chop through these guys pretty much in 10 seconds. I thought that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
This is what kills her about half an hour later, this same fight.
Yeah, she like keeps fighting. It's super weird because the private guy who is now a good man, he's also here, but he just gets knocked out, so she can have her weird final battle here.
They pretend that there is no one in this fucking bond except that guy, his
Yep.
love interest, and the little kid. When there's loads of people in here, like, that can all
And I
do
find it pretty frustrating because he's probably the only one here except her that has any battle training of some sorts, and he just
Well,
gets knocked out immediately.
Yeah, they put her at the, not even at the front by the way, because she should just probably be dead, but of course, yes, she blocks every shot. It's only when she's allowed to die that she actually takes any damage, but it's amazing how long this goes on for. And it's like they
Oh, yeah.
knew that they're like the lightsaber lady will be here. We better bring our lightsabers. Like what? Like why don't you guys just have guns?
Well, I mean, I actually kind of assumed I gave the film more credit than it deserved. Because when I watched this scene, I figured that they tried to shoot her, realized, damn, she can block the bullets or block the lasers, and then they got out their laser swords. But you just showed that they walk in with the lightsabers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're like, I can't wait to cut down women and children with my lightsaber.
So this means, doesn't it, that you don't need to have robot hands to use lightsabers?
Well,
Isn't love.
so this is something, it becomes a little bit more clear and it makes a little bit less sense. It becomes clear how little sense it makes, I should probably say, later in the film. So, basically the way that it works is that you can't hold the handle of the lightsaber sword because it gets really fucking hot. It will just straight up burn your hand.
Yeah.
The Imperium soldiers all have gloves, and presumably the gloves are designed to sort of counter this sort of innate quality that the blade, that the sword has. Nemesis has her robot arms, which accomplish the same thing. However, later on in the film, Cora picks up one of the swords, and the way that she gets to use it is she wraps a bunch of like fabric around the handle, and she can then use it. Which means that none of that is necessary. It's not actually that hot, and anyone can use it if they just have like a bit of fabric. They just take their shirt off and wrap the shirt around the handle.
I have a crazy idea for you. Just don't use it on. Just use it as a normal blade if you don't have a glove.
Yes.
Well, that is also a good idea.
Maybe they're very blunt unless they're super hot. But I was going to point out as well, like, is it Cora that sizzles her hand on it at first, and then she's like, oh, I got
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Why doesn't she know how they work? Surely she would.
Stupid.
I don't know
Are they
if
a
she
recent
necessarily
technological advancement, even though they're part of the fucking crazy Nemesis lady's ancestors?
Well, I don't know if it's possible to read that scene as not that she didn't know how they worked, but that she knew how they worked and just kind of grabbed it quickly, stabbed the guy, and was like, fuck, that hurts. And then kind of poked it a couple of times until it would cool down once the blade turned off. I don't know if that's a reasonable
Maybe.
reason.
I got the impression that she was like, oh, I can't hold the handle too long. I see. Like we're learning with it. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know why they chose to establish that using Cora, because like you say, Cora would know that. But yeah.
Why the fuck did they put the children in a place that wasn't going to be fucking attacked? What is wrong with them? Like, shouldn't they just be running away?
Yeah, go to the hills or something.
Yes,
Out
some
of
of
the
them to
village.
hide in the waterfall where you
They
can
could-
hit the dropship.
Yeah, exactly.
There
Yes.
you go. That's the most
There
obvious
you
fucking
go.
place.
Perfect.
Or they could have dug a hole for them. They could have dug a hole for them because the Imperium can't scan holes.
They're
If they all
wondering
just
rain
jumped
and
into a
holes.
hole, we'd be fine.
Oh my god, they actually could have all hidden in the hole. They could have all hidden in the hole with the Grey.